And in the upper left, in the red, he's playing for Mystery Gaming. That's a fun pickup. It's Oriana.
And in the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of the man who is hailing from Hong Kong. It's GogojOey.
Go Power Joey.
It's a cute nickname for sure. But like Oriana, even though he's part of a WTL squad, I feel like they don't send him out all that often, right? Because Mystery Gaming is a really stacked team. They've got Bonnie, they've got Ragnarok, they can field in Strange. So you don't see Oriana all that often in the WTL, and that is obviously a league that I do follow very closely. GogojOey is not part of a WTL team. And even if I think of offline events, I think there was a IEM in either Shanghai or Shenzhen a long time ago, where I think GogojOey was there. I remember that's the tournament where I spent a lot of time with Piggy, and we actually went to Hong Kong a little bit afterwards. It was a really fun, tiny one-day holiday with my good mate Piggy. I feel like that's the only time ever that I saw GogojOey at an offline event. Unless, I don't know, there was another American event a long time ago, but you just don't get to see these guys very often. Not in the online tournaments I cast, and not in the offline tournaments that I've visited in the past.
But it is a breath of fresh air, right? To go take a look at these players that, again, we don't see all that often, that are maybe a little bit different, and maybe to learn something. Obviously, you know, you look at Serral, you look at Dark, you look at Rainer, we talked about Zergs, you look at Oliveira, you look at Maru, and they have some very specific ways they want to play, and they think, and they know, just based off results, that they have figured out how to play the game at the most optimal level. But you look at these players that are maybe a little bit more regional, maybe a little bit more idiosyncratic, and you can learn some fun builds. You can see some things that are just a little bit different, that they have different approaches to play the game. And sometimes those weird approaches, those will show themselves in the big names, in the big tournaments. They'll propagate through. Like, obviously, we're talking about a Latin American player here and not a Southeast Asian player, a Chinese or an Asian region player. But the Eric build, for example, right? That 15 gas, 15 pool idea that he's been doing for forever now. Well, it's almost become the meta for Zergs. They saw that, they picked it up, they realized that it's really good against the 2-Rax opener. So sometimes these more creative players, they find their way into the meta.
Yep, and I think MaxPax in the past was a good example of that. Obviously, MaxPax right now is quite goated, but there was a time where he really wasn't at that level yet. Yet some of his openings, the top Protoss players back then looked at it and said, ha, that's actually kind of good. I don't know what that little kid from Denmark is doing, but I like it. And then you see all of a sudden these builds appear in the GSL, even though they were done by a 5-point-something-K Danish Protoss back then. I don't know if that's going to happen here. I think for Oriana, it's kind of hard to do something that's super out of the ordinary in TVZ. And I think both of them are just going to be focused on winning. Even though they know that it's going to be very difficult to win the entire region, everyone that qualifies for this event wants to have a bit of a run. Every single series you win, you're going to increase your prize earnings. And, you know, top 8 is technically doable. Yes, you have a couple of very heavy hitters in this region, but I think basically anything between 5, 6, 7, and 8, a lot of these guys are going to be very competitive with one another. So there's absolutely reason for these guys to dream, and that makes this a very important best of 3 immediately.
And not only that, you lose this series, you go down to 0-2. You have one life remaining at that point. It's a big deal, not only for just, again, getting to top 8, but for making sure you're not in this rough situation where you have no lifeline. You gotta win 3. You gotta win 3 series and not lose a single one at that point. Whereas, you know, you go to 1-1, you got a little bit of a safety net. You can win a series, you can lose a series, find yourself on that final day, be okay with it. But yeah, going down, that hurts quite a bit. But GogojOey, he is opening roaches here in this game, number 1. And you know, Roddy, from what I've seen on the new patch, it seems like opening roaches is just really popular in general. I'm assuming because the banelings have been nerfed a little bit. Yeah, you get baneling speed faster, but you don't get that nice mini combat shield on each individual bane. So it seems like that, and the power of the new cyclones and this 2-Rax opener, all of these things, they're just making these roach openers a lot more popular.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, it's not just roaches though. Like, he also got Zergling speed. We have a couple of links. And I was like, oh, these safety roaches, is he going to continue building them? But he only made 4, then went back into heavy droning. And I gotta say, GogojOey has done a really good job in cranking out a lot of workers here, despite the fact that he's guttling speed, despite the fact that he made an early roach warren and snuck out a couple of roaches that he showed, and then he pulled them back, so maybe it was a bit of a mind game. But he's like, hey, here I am, I'm going to all in you, hoping that Oriana would play overly defensive and maybe he would even build a few bunkers that he absolutely didn't need. Like, I look at the work account and I'm pretty impressed. I look at the way we got there and I'm a tiny bit confused, but I don't hate it.
I mean, Roddy, you know what? I enjoy living in a constant state of confusion. That's just fun to me. But the cool thing about this as well is we look at these Banshees and, well, they're going to show up a little bit. I could have sworn there was no cloak, and I'm going to talk about that. But regardless, they're getting some heavy damage done here and target firing on the Queens. Not targeting the high energy one, though, so they're not going to get a ton. In fact, with the Overseer as well, gets very low. Look at this creep out of GogojOey here, despite the Hellions on the right side. I mean, this creep is over halfway across the map, Roddy. It's 6 minutes in, and this is against Hellion Banshee.
Yep, and he's saving that 4th base, and we've got 11 more workers. We've got the Spire, double Evo Chamber. Like, this is actually a very sexy opening by GogojOey. This is a whole lot cleaner and a whole lot better than I thought that we were going to see. And it's not that Oriana has made any mistakes. He has just played it very safe. Maybe he was worried that if he makes a dive with his Hellions, that then 32 Zerglings show up on the other side of the map and he's going to end up losing a whole bunch of SCVs. And he didn't want to find himself in that spot. And maybe he thought, if I just show these units, I will scare my opponent and he won't have the courage to drone up the way that a Zerg should drone up. But I am very, very impressed by the first 7 minutes that the man from Hong Kong is displaying us here. And I'm very curious to see if these Mutas can find some success. Baneling speed is done. We don't have a single Baneling yet, but the fact that it's done is nice. Doors are open at the bottom side, though. That is a little bit unfortunate, but hey, 2 drones is nothing to truly panic over on the side of GogojOey.
No, not really. And you talked about Oriana playing defensively, being maybe afraid to dive in. Not only are you afraid of like 30 lings on the run by, but those 5 or 6 roaches, they handle this number of Hellions very easily. So by getting those roaches early on, it really did shut down any opportunity for those run bys, for those dives. And, you know, Roddy, it's fun. We haven't seen consistent Muta play for years now. It's all been Hydroling Bane, Ling Bane, things like that. Very rarely do we get a Muta player, but I've actually, you know, in the last day or two, just casting these different regions, nice target fire there on the Banes, but Oriana is going to have to back up. I've seen more Muta play in the last 24 hours than I've seen in like the last year or so. We saw Wayne do it, I think 2 or 3, all 3 of his games. We're seeing GogojOey do it here. That makes me a little happy. I love Muta play, but for now, the Hellions, finally, they're going to dive in. 6 drones go down, and that, well, actually, nah, they're not going to get too many more. The Queens are there, and you know what? 7, 8, you know, 6 drones is nice. 7 drones is nice. But the Mutas on the other side, they're doing so much more. Although you don't want to drive over the Marines like that. That's 3 dead.
Yeah, that was painful because losing a couple of drones but then killing that many SCVs was nice. Showing up before a single turret was completed was also very cool. Yeah, that final path that the Mutas took, that was a little bit painful. They are going to fly into the Banshees though. How quick will Oriana be able to activate Cloak? Because there's no Overseer here. Somewhat quick enough at least to keep them alive, and I guess that's the most important thing. The 1-1 upgrades are done. We do not have an infestation pit, so GogojOey is not giving us the idea that he wants to rush into Hive and get Adrenal Glands. He just wants to spam lair tech units for a while, and since Oriana is out on the map, maybe this is a moment where the lair tech army can shine.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see. Certainly no 2-2 on the way right now, just trying to get as much of an army as possible. His army is big here. It's bigger than the Terrans, but it's a lot of Mutas, and did any more go down right there?
Yes. Yeah,
2 more Mutas died. Okay.
That's why I said the oh no, because he kind of just had them idling. He was picking up reinforcements, so he was doing an alrighty job. But then Oriana saw that they were just chilling in the center of the map. Stint forward, got a couple. Mutas again on top of the Marines, loses another one. I mean, Mutas are very expensive. GogojOey definitely has a chance. He's got a little Ling run by happening as well at the 4th base. That's not quite a planetary yet. Mutas are now attacking a supply depot. It all feels a little bit hectic, right? It feels a little bit chaotic, but so far, perhaps is so good for GogojOey. But I do think it's important to mention, Bio, that he needs to start finding serious victories, because 4 base against 4 base, lair tech Zerg, yeah, you're not going to win that forever.
Down 2 upgrades as well here. 2-2 versus 1-1. It's the most anti-timing imaginable. The upgrades are just done. But even still, the Banelings, they're going to try to get on top. Look at these splits. They're not going to get on top. And yeah, the Mutas kill the tanks here. But the Marines, they stand so freaking strong, Roddy. This 4th base, it's now almost forfeit. Do we any bait? There's not a single Baneling on the map here. The Mutas are going to do what they can, and they clean this up. But that was so expensive coming out of GogojOey, even as the Medivacs fall down. At this point, it's the Marine rally. There are no Banes. The Mutas can't fight this easily. This base is dead. As soon as Oriana decides to tap it down, that's the problem. GogojOey waited too long.
Great job by Oriana there, realizing that there wasn't a whole lot of Zerg left and the reinforcements showed up at the right moment. Muta count is pretty damn high as he's getting a couple of the tanks, but now we are bleeding out a decent amount of Mutalis. Still doing his absolute best. Do we have a couple of Banelings in the mix? Yes, but they cannot get close to these Marines. Oriana is just showing us how TVZ often looks if you know what you're doing, right? He didn't even have to find crazy damage early on. He didn't go for some sort of an aggressive opening on the Terran side. Just pure macro. And the moment those 2-2 upgrades were ready, you mentioned it, it was a bit of an anti-timing for GogojOey. But I don't know if there was a better moment, right? Because you don't want to give up that right base too easily. Because if he gives up the ramp, well, then this base, the triangle, is in trouble immediately as well. And the Muta movement is good. I'm just afraid that it's never going to be enough against all these Marines.
I mean, Roddy, to answer that question, the answer was to go earlier. 2-2 is done. I mean, it's a canyon of a timing before GogojOey's 2-2 is done as well. But there was this 30-second window where GogojOey had the map. He was up in supply, and he had 1-1 versus 1-1. And that's when you go and you smash it. That's when you go and force your opponent back. Because Oriana, this is not 8 racks. This is not just 3 base, almost all-in timing. He's got his 4th base done. GogojOey knew about that. It's double factory. In fact, Oriana's killing Ling Bane with tank Marine tank, which is not how you often want to do it. Generally, you add in the Winnowmines, things like that. But this tank count is doing so much here, and the Mutas are just not able to clean it up anymore.
Look at the units lost resource tab. I know GogojOey already lost 2 bases now, but that's still kind of crazy. An 8,000 resource difference in a 12-minute game. And GogojOey, even though he's been very active with the Mutas, there were a few moments where he kind of left them idle. Oriana jumped on top of them immediately, and over 30 Mutalists have died in such a short game. The fact that you can make 30 Mutas in such a short game is already impressive, but losing over 30 of them is obviously very problematic. The Mutas feel that this is a fight that they can take because there are no more Medivacs, but there are still plenty of Marines. There are more Marines in the bottom left side. There are a couple of Banelings that are going to try to make their way into this Marine pack, and these Baneling connections are alrighty, but they are simply not good enough anymore as Oriana is way too far ahead.
In an even game, they'd be great. And in an ahead game, GogojOey would be very happy, but as far behind as he is and just lacking production as he is, yeah, it doesn't matter. He's expanding everywhere. He took this bottom left base briefly. He's got a base in the middle on the way, but yeah, he is dead. Losing that Baneling nest is the end of it. Oriana shows the promise that we saw in that first tour, and he goes up 1.
41 Mutas falling in 13 minutes and 20 seconds. That is a
like
pretty ridiculous number. And I gotta say, I'm somewhat surprised that it was that many. Because yes, there were a couple of tiny moments, right? You showed it when the Mutas were first in the main, then they flew over the Marines at the triangle base of Oriana. That was a bit painful. Then there was that small moment where he was picking up reinforcements. He was bleeding out a couple. But other than that, you were like, I didn't see a crazy error. It's not like he flew into 3 Winnowmines and he lost 10 plus Mutas at once, or he completely abandoned his Mutas and Marines were just wailing away. It was always just 2, 3, 4 Mutas at a time. It just added up very quickly. And I gotta say though, if I look at that first game, it's like kind of the style that I expected of GogojOey, where we know that he's not going to sit back and rush into an 8-minute hive and get very quick lurkers out, right? Like there are very few Zergs who play like that, which we know is perhaps an optimal way to play or one of the great styles that Zergs can play. But relying on that very quick hive when you have so few units and feeling comfortable with it is one of the most difficult things as a Zerg. So I expect him to play like this. But then I'm surprised that Oriana looked so damn good against it, while GogojOey found a lot of success against him throughout the entire year.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those setups where GogojOey has had his number up until this year. And I think it's important to point out, Roddy, that Oriana, Blooming, whatever you want to call him, is very much an up-and-coming player. He is someone that has gone and, he didn't play, we haven't seen him play GogojOey before this season. We haven't seen a ton of results from him in general. So every single month, it seems like he is playing a little bit better, and we're seeing more out of him as he's kind of figuring out who he is more. So GogojOey, it was April, it was May. They played those first 3 series where GogojOey went a combined 7-1 against Oriana and Maps. And then there's this 5-month gap between summer and into winter. And suddenly he 3-2s him. And now Oriana is looking up 1-0 here. So those 5 months, when you're looking at an up-and-coming player, Roddy, 5 months, they can mean quite a bit.
You're telling me he spent the summer in the hyperbolic time chamber?
Exactly. Climbing that mountain.
Okay. All right, I'm glad we got that sorted. Let's go ahead and hop into game 2 and see if the man from Hong Kong can turn things around, as he is now 1 net away from being 0-2 in this Swiss format. And there are still some people out there who are a bit confused about the group stage format we use over here at the ESL Masters Regionals, but it's very simple. You win 3 series, you make it into the playoffs. If you lose 3 series, you are eliminated. Both of these players are 0-1, and that's why they're playing against each other. This man is not just 0-1 in series, he's also 0-1 in this best of 3. It is GogojOey.
And of course, his opponent in the bottom left, in the red, rocking the purple team, looking really strong there, and just that standard Terran play. His name is Oriana.
This map seems very popular because we have so many maps, so I never thought that we'd see the same maps over and over again in best of 3s, and I definitely don't want to say that that is the case. Like in the past, we had 1 or 2 map pools where I was like, oh my goodness, every best of 3 has like 2 out of 3 maps in common, and then depending on the matchup, we'll figure out what the third is. With 9 maps, I kind of thought it'd be pretty random, right? That you see a little bit of everything, but this one sneaks in very often in almost every single matchup.
Well, so I think part of it is that vetoes get weird for best of 5s, right? You go pick. I think it's like 4 picks, and then you ban 4, and then you pick 2, and then you ban 2 more, and then you pick 2 more, and then there's the last one remaining. So you can force maps early on in a pick ban phase. On a best of 3, it's just ban, 6 bans, and then you have the 3 remaining. So it's a lot harder to force interesting maps. And honestly, Roddy, I would love to see best of 3 pick ban format follow something closer to the best of 5, where maybe you ban 4, you pick 2 more, you ban a couple more, then you have 1 remaining, and then that would force more interesting maps. I mean, I'm still not convinced we ever see Radicet, but we might see other maps.
Well, you say that, but I have a scenario where you're going to see Radicet very often, and that is the WTL, because whenever you lose your opening map, you can pick whatever map you want as second map. And I think Serral has been playing on Radicet 4 times already in this very short season of WTL Codes. Everyone seems to think that the best chance they have against the great Jonas Sutala is just to pick a Radicet station.
Well, you know, I'm a big fan of players having maps that they specialize on. And we're not there yet because of just how the kind of best of 3 pick bans work for the most part. But the concept of, say, I don't know, Wayne, who actually took a map off Serral yesterday, of Wayne going and saying, you know what, I'm really going to get good at Radicet, or whatever it is, Equilibrium, all right, one of these maps that isn't picked all that much, and I'm going to really get good at it. And then because of how pick bans work, I can force this. And I'm going to know this more than anyone else because I practice it and I play it. And I know the ins and outs. And I got builds specifically for this map. That's an exciting idea. Now, we're not there yet. And I think maybe, I would love to see some sort of some ability to force maps early on into the pick ban phase of a best of 3. But it makes sense, right? Like, that's one of the things that a 9-map pool gives us, is this ability for specialization and map-specific builds and other things that we really haven't had in StarCraft in quite a while.
I mean, I love it, and I was smiling because I was like, yeah, you know, Wayne definitely picked Radicet against Serral. And yes, he did win the game against Serral on Radicet as well, but I'm not sure if he really spent a whole lot of time getting very good at it, because it was a 3-minute night is all in. But, but you know, he did pick the map and he did win, so perhaps there is something to it.
I mean, that's the plan. You go into a big map and you all in them, because there's no way they expect the all in when you pick one of the biggest maps in the pool that's just massive. Actually, that's what
I mean, the funny thing is that I always thought of Bly back in the days, and there, you know, in every map pool we often had one map that is just ridiculously large and it's just a whole lot bigger than everything else. And whenever Bly would end up on that map, I'm like, well, this is so obvious, it's a Nidus. His opponent is gonna know it's a Nidus, right? And then they often didn't expect it. They're like, oh wow, nice, I get to play Bly on a nice macro-oriented map. And I'm like, no, there's no way. Like, the larger the map, the better it is for the Nidus. Like, that's just what's going to happen here. Anyway, we can go ahead and focus a little bit on GogojOey versus Oriana game 2, as Oriana is thinking of getting adventurous here with his 4 Hellions and the Reaper, but GogojOey had plenty of units to deal with this, and honestly, that is an incredibly sweet cleanup. Like, the man lost nothing.
No, not at all. And again, we've talked about this in game 1. We're talking about it in game 2. GogojOey, his creep spread this early on into the game is really solid, and part of that is that Oriana, we saw last game, really powerful mid-game pressure, really nice, just traditional macro Terran. But he doesn't put a ton of pressure on the edges of the creep early on. He's not Clem, for example, who would just, if you're, it's gonna make it very hard for you to spread creep. He's not Maru, something like that. So he does get, or GogojOey does get away with this as Ling's on the right side. They're gonna try to put some pressure on the third base, and actually that's really nice. Because Roddy, that delays those 2 medevacs, that forces them back home. The drop's not gonna happen because the Lings, they forced it back.
I love it, mate, because that is also going to allow you to spread another creep 2 more forward. And now these Marines are going to show up a little bit later. GogojOey is here again, and these Lings are going to be annoying. That is not enough Marines to deal with this many Zerglings. I mean, this is really good Ling movement by GogojOey, who even moved the Lings towards the natural, and they will not get into the natural, but they will get on top of a couple of these SCVs. Is picking up the remaining SCVs at the third. What an absolutely amazing start, and we can't ignore the fact that the man has played double Evo very quickly, so his upgrades in that previous game, you mentioned anti-timing behind in upgrades, well, he's gonna be ahead in upgrades here in game 2, while finding this much economic damage and not taking any damage at home. You gotta love this start if you're GogojOey.
Oh no. Oriana just bulk selected every single SCV on the map, and he tried to pull him into the third base, and he lifted his natural. Roddy, we gotta wait for a second for it to percolate, but this income graph is gonna be the worst thing ever for a Terran player as we take a look at it. Look at this spike. Look at this spike for GogojOey. That 2,500 minerals briefly, and now a tank's gonna go down here as well. As good as game 1 was for Oriana, game 2 is so bad.
Game 2 is a nightmare. This is the 3rd time that he thought of making a little move out. Not even with his entire army, right? Just a couple of Marines. The 3rd time he moves out, and it could not have been any worse for him. Every single time, the moment he's 2-3 seconds away from home, a whole bunch of Lings show up. GogojOey is having the time of his life here in game 2. Fires up the hive that we never got to see in that previous game. Already working on his 2-2 upgrades as well. And for the first time, the 3rd time or the 4th time that he finally tried, Oriana is able to unload a couple of Marines on the other side of the map. But the very first time, he would have been battling like 10 Lings and Queens, right? This time around, he's battling Banelings with speed, 1-1 upgrades, a crazy amount of Zerglings, and all the Queens have a ridiculous amount of energy as well. So there is very little that 60 Marines can ever accomplish here.
Oh no, there's a full wall as well, but it's just not full enough here. Banelings will run in, and hey, Marines are there. So it's only 3 SCVs. It's not nearly as bad as it might otherwise have been. Oriana, maybe that's a bit of a feather in his cap. Now finally he's like, look, I can play the game. Maybe the jitters are gone a little bit, because the first 5 minutes, the first 7 minutes of this game, more than anything, Roddy, they felt like nerves. Kind of this idea of, wow,
nothing went his way, right?
No.
He lost 4 Hellions in the Reaper for a couple of Zerglings, never a good trade. Then he tries to leave with 2 medevacs. A couple of Lings show up, he has to turn around. Then he leaves again, more Lings show up, and then the 3rd time, a lot of Lings show up. And he's like, this is unbelievable. Can I please, just for the love of everything, execute whatever the hell I'm trying to do? And I think at this point, you gotta give up. Whatever you had in mind when it came to certain move-outs, you gotta let go of whatever your game plan was. And just turtle, right? Embrace the turtle Terran within you. And yes, you're gonna go up against Hive-Tech Zerg here. That Wolof is still not a Wolof. And GogojOey should have known, because the Banelings passed earlier, but is not gonna... I actually would have loved to see the Lings go through there, because all I see is a single tank there, so the tank would have done a lot of friendly fire. But whatever the initial game plan was, I'd say forget about it. Let's drop that Ghost Academy, get a bunker or 2, and just take it 1 base at a time, and turtle up on the high ground with Wolofs, Widow Mines, bunkers, and slowly but steady go into Ghost.
Yeah, you know, there's a world actually where I kind of like this wall. You put the tank in the choke right here, and suddenly Lings filter and Banelings filter, and the tank's just raining hellfire on it as they just clump up, go single file. But that's not even a thing. It's not an intentional gap in the wall that we'll sometimes see just looking for the choke. as these banelings are going to get canceled. That's really nice for Oriana. He's got his 2-2 done in, 20 seconds or so he's going to have this opportunity. Meanwhile, dropping the main base as well, but one medevac dies. Just the spore count here for GogojOey is so nice. At the very least, it might distract a little bit. Widow mines are going to be a little better. Oh, that's really good mines as well here on the unload. Wait a minute here, Oriana. That's one baneling that GogojOey has. Best possible trade he really could have gotten. Yeah, he loses the drop in the main, but those widow mines,
the widow mines were fantastic, but that was pretty much the only thing that was fantastic, right? The double drop already took a lot of damage when it flew over that base at 3 o'clock, and that's why it was so easy for one of those medevacs to die. And I think it's safe to say GogojOey sent a few too many units into his main. He had like 85 circlings in his main base, defending against 8 Marines. That was not quite it. A sweet baneling connection there on the top left side. It really softens up a lot of the Marines. We have a big Ling counter as well. Look at the natural. It is Ling galore. It is baneling galore. And that one tank is just not going to cut it. A lot of SCVs should fall here. Well, okay, that could have gone a little bit better, Mr. GogojOey. But it's all right, because he's got ultras at home. He's got kindness plating down, +2 carapace. Not the best defense. Perhaps not even the best counterattack, but I think easily good enough.
I think the important thing here as well is a lot of add-ons died. So any sort of Marauder transition, anything like that, temporarily dealing with the Ultras is going to be that much harder. Now, Ultras Lings, they're going to get on top of this planetary. The SCVs are slow on the hug of life there. The Lings are just, they're zoning them out. So this planetary will fall down. It's 40 dead SCVs, Roddy. That, Flex Tape won't fix that. That's a lot of damage.
Yep, and it's not that Oriana has like the Hail Mary play where it's like, okay, at least he's got 100 and something army supply and he can really make it happen. We have one Widow Mine, multiple Widow Mines actually getting big shots off there. All right, that was kind of cool. But I just think his army is a bit too tiny to really step deep onto creep when you have to worry about this many banings. These medevacs have been working overtime. Wouldn't hate an Overseer or 2 for GogojOey. He's got a couple on the way. Hopefully they'll show up in time. Oriana's going to try one more time to get this base online and up and running. But against these Ultras with the sexy upgrades and this many banelings in the mix as well, I don't think it's ever going to cut it. There is only one thing, BL, that I am missing. That's burrow. I want to see Ultras burrow quickly, and I want to see some burrow banelings, but apparently we don't need it. GogojOey ties things up. Just off the back of a phenomenal first 8 minutes, where Oriana tried not once, not twice, but 3 times to pick up a couple of Marines, just to have a little bit of map presence on the other side of the map. And the timing of GogojOey, his Link showing up, could not have been any better. If you'd have taken away Fog of War, those were the exact moments those Links were supposed to show up. The first time, the second time, and the third time. It was picture perfect.
Yeah, and Roddy, I realized, apparently it wasn't just boxing all your SCVs and running them to the wrong spot. Oriana lifted every orbital at the same time. They're all just in the air. So yeah. If you take a look at the post-game graph, you can pinpoint the moment where he died. It's like there is just this vertical drop of about almost like 2,000 mineral resources a minute that just is into the floor, and then he just never recovered from there. He lost he just felt that he needed to get something done. It didn't happen. More drops, more run bys. He could never pick up going to the other side, and now, well, we've seen one game where Oriana looked really good and GogojOey just didn't. And then we've seen one game where Oriana looked really not great and Oriana looked fantastic, and GogojOey looked fantastic. So now, Site Delta, again, one of those more common maps in the pool, game 3. Roddy, given what you've seen in the first 2 games, who do you favor more here? Who do you think is playing better? On
Site Delta, I do still favor Oriana because I think it's an excellent just Marine tank map. You really don't have to make it too complicated. You can open up with your Hellions, Banshee, Triple CC, and then you just play Marine tank. And GogojOey looked amazing, but a lot of Zergs will look amazing once the tempo advantage goes their way, once they start having all the map control. The Ling run-bys are fantastic, not even because they're dealing so much damage, but because they keep the Terrans at home. It is so much harder on this map to get that kind of stuff or that kind of momentum going for yourself. And I also think that Oriana can just take a step back and be like, all right, game 1, it went awesome. Why did it went awesome? Because I played it safe and I played it slow and I was in control from the beginning till the end. Did he do a lot with the Hellions? No. But did he randomly donate them? Also no, right? So that gave him a very smooth transition into the Stim bio. And I think if he just make sure that he's not that vulnerable at home, that he doesn't pick up all his units and hopes that there are no links showing up. Because just like me or Micah, when you don't want links to show up as a Terran, those links are going to show up. So you just have to play it a little slower and a little more defensive than you would do against other Zergs.
Yeah, absolutely. But now we get to see what's going to happen on site Delta. It's our final map here of this best of 3. And for the Juggernauts in the blue in the upper left, looking to move on to 1-1, it's GogojOey.
Bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of our Chinese Terran. A bit of a nightmare of a game 2. And he had the worst Terran moment out there where you accidentally lift all your command centers. But if you can just focus on everything that went right in game 1, I still think he's going to be okay. It is Mysteries Gaming's Oriana. You mentioned a few times that he's an up-and-comer, and I was like, well, yeah, he has been around for a while, but then I thought, let's take a look at how old he is, and he is actually only 19 years of age. So that is definitely young enough that we can say, okay, he's got a long way to go if he can just keep on playing. If he has already reached this level while being 19, yeah, perhaps by the time he turns 20, 21, he could really be a big name in at least his region, but perhaps even worldwide.
Yeah, and I look at this series, right, Roddy? And game 1, he looked fantastic. Played solid, played just a very classical Terran style. It worked out for him really well. Game 2, panic, chaos, letting the nerves get to you. You're up 1-0 on this guy that you really have struggled to beat over the course of the year. It's just you're on one match you really don't want to lose, and then the nerves start happening, and you start making mistakes and get in your own head, and then you lift all your orbitals, and you literally aren't mining for 30 seconds, for like 15 seconds, and the game's over, and it just snowballs from there. So I think if we see Oriana here, if we see him just calm down a little bit, maybe figure things out, you're right, take it a little bit slow, move from there, then I think he does have a pretty solid shot in this game. But what I think is interesting, actually, is that we see this low ground wall, but it's not the double barracks opener. It's barracks, it's factory, it's your standard 1-1-1 Reaper expand, but he just put that barracks on the natural. It's a bit fatter of a wall, and ooh, he gets a drone.
Yep, proper first blood. I've always feel that first blood on the links doesn't count, but if you get a drone, it absolutely does count. Yeah, there are some Terrans who like to do this. The one name that jumps to my mind immediately is Juanito. Special has been a big fan of building a barracks and a factory on the low ground for a little while. Even on maps without a ramp, by the way. It really has nothing to do with a ramp or no ramp. For instance, on Royal Blood, he kept on doing it over and over again. And it actually gives you a couple of very gnarly timings. And the 2 cyclones early on. Something we saw in the beginning of this Neil patch, where I think back of a game that Clem played against Serral on altitude as well, where you had 2 cyclones very early. And the Reaper can actually be the absolute MVP. Because if you place a nice grenade and you bounce the queens off creep, I mean, we all know how painfully slow queens are off creep, and that's when the cyclones can just go to town immediately on these queens. So that Reaper is very important here. A, you don't want to lose it, and B, ideally want to try to drop a perfect grenade.
Absolutely, but for now it's going to be a dead Overlord. There will be absolutely no saving this. The queen waddles off creep for a second. That's not where it wants to be. So creep tumor will fall. The question I ask, Roddy, as we look at what's happening here is, oh, that's a dead queen. Nice snipe there. Nice catch early on the right side. Just nothing to defend it. And we're going to see a drone fall as well. The question I was going to ask was, where do you swap back to Hellions? Do you swap back to Hellions?
Yeah, I think after... some people already do it after 2 cyclones. It seems that Oriana want to go up to 4 cyclones. But yeah, it is very important, obviously. Otherwise, 20 Zerglings will just shut this down. And then you lose your entire investment. And it's a little bit too expensive for that. But I feel so far it's already been a bit of a success. I personally would have loved to see a scan. I know scans are expensive early on, but imagine if you would have taken out those 2 creep tumors on the low ground. Then these bases are no longer connected and it'd legitimately be very gnarly. We now have an awkward mix between roaches and lynx. GogojOey made a lot of overlords not too long ago. He's got 20 plus Zerglings on the way. Roaches are leading the charge, so that is not what he wants, because what he needs is to get a surround on the Zerglings. Is the Hellion count high enough to prevent that surround? The answer at the moment is no, and I think it will continue to be no. Pretty good defense here by GogojOey in the end.
Well, it's not defense, Roddy, it's offense. And I guess, you know what, in fairness, the best defense is a good offense here. Roaches, Ravagers, Lings come streaming across the map here, looking for the big punish. Now, there are 2 barracks at the front. This is a hard wall to punch through. but things are getting lifted. There's no production off the factory. SCVs are going to have to get pulled here. Roddy, there is nothing to fight. It's like 2 Marines. There's a bunker here sitting behind. But he lifted the factory. You need stuff out of there. You need Cyclones. You need Hellions. You need something. And this pressure coming out of GogojOey right now, it's so much.
And that bunker is in such an awkward spot, right? It wasn't even shooting at the Ravages while they were making their way through. 11 SCVs have died. Marines are popping in very awkward angles. A great corrosive out there, taking out a lot of SCVs. 17 SCVs have died. GogojOey is just reinforcing this attack. Why not? Because the Ravages are still very healthy. They can drop a couple of additional corrosive valves, and more SCVs should fall, will fall. Medevacs are out. Yeah, that's fantastic. But the only thing that's left is the 7 Marines.
And combat shields will fall on top of this. So all the timings in the world, well, I think combat shields are going to fall. Maybe. Yeah, okay, it's going to get denied. No repair there. So now Oriana, he's got a decision to make. He's got to run across the map. He's got to get commensurate damage in some way. But that's a hard thing to do, Roddy. It's, what are we looking at? 8 Marines right here, 2 medevacs, really tapped out of their energy. Now, I guess the one saving grace is that GogojOey isn't on like 75 drones or something. He was committing on the reinforcements, didn't drone out quite as heavily as he could have. Maybe that's the one thing we can be happy about, but it's not a lot to be happy about, Roddy. Oriana did not read this properly.
I kind of wish that he would have tried to at least save that combat shield, right? Because it was, I think, savable at one point. At first, it looked like it was absolutely going to fall. Then I do think there really was a moment where he could have pulled 1 or 2 additional SCVs, tried to repair it. Because if you then look at, like, let's say, just 20 Marines, plus 1 attack, combat shield, and stim 2 medevacs, be like, well, this is actually going to be very annoying for GogojOey. He's going to have to build a decent amount of units. This wall-off, by the way, has been working against Oriana all along, because when that attack started, there were already a bunch of Marines on the wrong side of that wall-off. And then on top of that, the bunker was just in such an awkward spot. Sure, it lived forever, and that was really cool. He salvages now because he felt he didn't need it anymore. But it's obviously not a great bunker if the Ravagers can just freely work on depots, make their way through, stand in your natural, and the bunker wasn't even in range to fire at them.
Yeah, really, really painful there. And again, I think I just look back at the fact that we had the entire fight that Oriana is trying to defend. The factory is just floating above the barracks, running back and forth. It wants to land, it can't land. There are lings on the ground, nothing can be produced. And then you consider that fight if you had a couple more Hellions maybe, or Cyclones, or you find a tech lab somewhere and you get a tank out, which would be just incredible, but unlikely. That is a lot easier to hold on to, but producing off of 2 barracks. Do you believe, though, Bio? Yeah.
Do you believe in the comeback? Because I still kind of believe a tiny bit.
The Terrans got mules ready.
Yeah. And then we're going to find a bunch of Overlords here. That's obviously a lovely way to start things off for Oriana. It's going to kill not 1, not 2, but all 3 of them. It's going to clean up a little bit of creep. Like, last game, it felt impossible because GogojOey did a great job in being on top of his upgrades, dropping an infestation pit, and you knew that ultras were coming. It was a monstrous Zerg economy. Now I'm looking at like a 20-ish or so worker advantage, but it's also roaches. The supply is a little bit deceiving. Like, if you would have just opened the game right now, you look at the numbers, you're like, doesn't even look all that bad for Oriana, right? If he doesn't make any big errors in the next minute, he should be fine. And I think in a weird way, he is going to be fine, even though that Ling run by might have something to say about it. Oriana cannot lose tanks because he really needs tanks in case overwhelming roach numbers show up. And GogojOey does find the tank, so that's a great start for GogojOey.
Yeah, he's going to lose the fight on the right side as well here. GogojOey just knocks down those Marines on the left side, though, maybe. No, there's too many roaches here as well. So Oriana loses 3 fights at the same time. And Roddy, you know what? I would love to huff the Terran Copium. I would love to say that Oriana has a reasonable shot about coming back into this game, but now we're starting to see that army supply really skyrocket, and more importantly, the economy here is just, it's been so bad for Oriana for so long. The files almost get the medevac. Not quite, but at this point, GogojOey, his 1-1 is done in 5 seconds. Burrow in 8. Burrow movement just shortly after that. This sledgehammer of Zerg, Roddy. I don't know how Oriana's supposed to hold his third, and if he can't hold his third, well, a 2-base Terran, yeah, eventually maybe you tech out of it, but it's going to be a long, long road.
All right, GogojOey is going to send it. He's going to get on top of the first tank immediately. That's big. There is 1 tank in the natural. He's going to get a couple of big shots up. but most likely it will not be enough. He lost a lot of Marines, right, 1 minute ago, and these are the Marines that he really needed at home. We're gonna pull the SCVs. That final thing is gonna get picked off as well. The last few Marines are standing strong, but it is not going to be enough, as GogojOey is already finding some really good economic damage once more and has completely reset the tank count. Like, I would have loved to see that without losing that one tank against a few Zerglings, without losing those 15 Marines that they lost at 2 different fights, and then a single bunker. Because then I always believe in the Marine tank bunker comeback against Roaches and Ravages, but I think Oriana just bled out a few too many units before this attack even took place.
And now GogojOey being fancy with it as well. Burrows 8 Roaches into the main base, because why not? I mean, the game's over. You're going to win with the army in the front. Might as well do it with style points as well, as the Roaches in the main base properly ended. And GogojOey